Hi, everybody. Okay. So we're going to restart what we did in class. I'm going to go back over again everything you need to know for progress at 2. So the first thing we're going to talk about is phases. So when you are doing a renovation or addition project, something that a project where you're working with part of an existing building, so everything is not new construction from the ground up. You will have, obviously you'll have existing building components, walls, doors, floors, ceilings. But then there will also be new construction. So, of course, you may be adding new walls or floors or doors or ceilings, or you may be demolishing some of those same components. So in Revit, you set a phase to say which phase of the project building components are. So they're either existing or new construction. If things are demolished, then you say what phase they're demolished in. So if you had an existing wall, you would set it to phase existing. And then if it were demolished, you would say that it's demolished in the new construction phase. Every now and then we get a project that is really complex and may have more than one new construction phase. So then you may say, it's demolished not in phase 1, but in phase 2. But for the sake of this project, I'm just going to have you all set all of the walls to existing because we're not building anything new. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to start on A100 on my first floor plan, and I'm going to activate this view. And then I'm going to show you another tool while we do this. So a couple of you did kind of mention this in class today. You'll notice that if you drag your mouse to select things, if you drag from left to right, it only selects things that are fully encompassed in your selection box. So see, like it's not grabbing that far west wall over here. It's not grabbing that wall because I'm not covering the whole thing. See, when I cover the whole thing with my box, it selects. If you drag from right to left, your selection box will select anything that it touches. So if you're having a hard time grabbing stuff, like if you're trying to do that and you're trying to select a whole bunch of stuff and it's not really grabbing what you want, just try dragging from the other direction and that should work. So to set my phases, I'm going to select everything here. And then I'm going to come down here to this little funnel down here in the corner, far bottom corner. It says 103. That means that I have 103 objects selected right now. And sometimes that's good to know too if you're trying to count something. So maybe you want to know how many doors you have in a project. You could select a door, or sorry, doors of a type. So you could select a door, come down here, say select all instances, an entire project. So even if they're not in this view, it would still count them. And it tells me I have 4. So sometimes that's good if you're trying to figure out counts of something. Anyway, I'm going to select everything. I'm going to come down here to my funnel. I'm going to click it. And now it's telling me the categories of things that I have selected that equals that total 103 items. And then it's telling me, each. So I have, 7 room tags, 7 rooms selected, 63 walls selected, 8 doors. So I'm going to uncheck all of these. And then I'm just going to select doors and walls because those are the things I want to set to existing. I'm going to say OK. So now that's all I have selected. And then I'm going to come down here in my properties and under phase created, I'm going to say existing. And then we're not demolishing anything in this project. So you say phase demolished none because they're not ever demolished. They're from the existing phase, but they're going to carry on into the quote unquote new construction phase, even though we don't have a new construction phase for this project. Okay, you will notice too, some of you commented on this, that your walls now display differently. They're not black. depending on what phase you have things set to, they display differently just for your own knowledge when you're working in Revit. It makes it easier to look at a wall and not have to come down here in the properties to see what phase it's in. It just lets you know by sight. You get used to knowing which appearance is which phase. So we're going to go ahead and save. I'm always in the habit of saving. Okay, another thing that some of you mentioned, or some of you did in your progress set 1. So some of you did put a wall here, which is fine. And if you didn't, I saw that some of you did not place a room here or didn't have a room tag. So I wondered if you had this problem. So you'll see I've placed a room in my lobby, but it's counting this whole entire area over here, all this not in scope area, which isn't accurate, right? Like I want my room to stop here. But because there's not a wall here, it's just counting all of this. It goes to the extent of the walls. So to fix that, if there really wasn't a wall here in real life, but we wanted the room or what we're thinking of as a room, even though there's not a wall between it, we would come up here to architecture and then room separator. And that's just drawing like a boundary for a room. So you can even see on that little pop-up. It's just drawing a boundary for a room, even though there's not a wall there. It's like an artificial separator. So obviously that's not like something you would see built in the project. It's just for Revit to know, okay, this is where you want me to stop counting this room. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to draw that line between there. And now see my room extent is only here in the lobby and not this big gray, not in scope area. And you can tell too from the square footage, it was like 4,000 something. Now it's 800. So that sounds realistic. Okay. Now we're going to copy the filled region that is the big gray blob that is on your PDF and on your handout, that area that's not in scope, the gray shape. We're going to recreate that on our plan. So I'm going to unhide my PDF so you can type RH to reveal hidden. And then I'm going to select my PDF. I'm going to click unhide. And now it's unhidden, so I'm going to get out of my reveal hidden elements mode. So now my PDF is unhidden. And I'm going to create this filled region that follows the shape here on the screen. So to do that, you go to annotate, which is where any of our things that are not building components live. So like tags, symbols, dimensions, and for this instance, filled regions. Excuse me. So we're going to click here. We're going to click filled region. You can choose your line style. You can change it afterwards. If it doesn't look like you want it to look, you can always come back and edit it. I'm going to pick medium lines for this. That just means like medium thickness. And then I'm going to start to trace the same wall extents from the PDF. And if you all are not yet using a real mouse instead of a trackpad on your laptop, I highly, highly encourage you to bring an actual mouse to class. You're going to have a really hard time using a trackpad. And I saw that some of you were really struggling to zoom in and out and to pan around your page. It's just going to make your life so much easier to bring a mouse. They're like $10 at Walmart. I just really, really recommend for your own sanity that you bring a mouse to class. Okay, so I've finished tracing my shape. I'm going to click the green check mark to accept that boundary. And now I see that it's highlighted. So here's another thing. So I forgot this little area over here. I forgot to trace that. So instead of creating a second filled region, you could just create a second one here, but I want them to all be in one. So I'm going to click Edit Boundary, which just lets me keep drawing in the same shape I was. So I'm going to come over here. Okay. So now I've got the whole thing. Okay. So if I deselect it, I'm going to go ahead and rehide my PDF just so you all can see what's happening. Okay. I'm going to try to make it kind of match the handout best I can. So I want it to be gray so that it's easier to tell when you're looking at the plan that this area is separate. So over here, if I select it over here in my properties, I can change the type just like we changed the type of walls or anything else. I don't want it to be transparent because I don't want to be able to see anything under there. Just because this is our filled region that's saying this area is not in scope. So because it's not in scope, we don't want to see anything. We want it to like hide anything under there. Granted, right now you all don't have anything under there, but the plan that this existing drawing came from, there was stuff under there. So we don't want to use transparent because that would let us see through the shape. It would make it gray, but we could still see anything under there. Instead, I'm going to pick this diagonal down that's not transparent, just diagonal down. Let's see how that looks. It looks pretty good, but I still want it to be gray instead of white. So I'm going to edit type. And then I'm going to duplicate this type because I don't want to change the one that's existing here. And this needs to be something you all get in the habit of too. If you're editing a type to change the properties, I always suggest duplicating it and then changing the duplicate so that you still have the original. There are times that you can get yourself in trouble by changing the original because, for example, at work, on my sheets, I may not have used whatever it is I'm changing. Like I may think it's fine to change the original because I don't think it's been used. But it could be something that the architects are using on their sheet and I just haven't seen that yet. So I might be changing something on their sheets and then it's harder to go back and fix it, put it back right. So it's better to just always be in the habit of creating a duplicate and then working from there. So now I just duplicated it. So I did click duplicate. I renamed it. I'm just going to call it diagonal down gray. And now it's exactly like the original, but I won't be messing up the original if for some reason I needed to go back and use it again. So to make this gray, you see that we have foreground fill pattern, foreground pattern color, background fill pattern, and background pattern color. Foreground fill pattern is diagonal down, which is the lines that we chose to see. And then those are black. And then background fill pattern, there's nothing selected. So I'm going to click in here. And when I click in here, this little tiny button appears with the 3 dots. That always means you can click it to select something. So I'm going to push that button. I'm going to say solid fill up here at the top. Okay. And then I don't want it to be black. I don't want the whole shape to be like pitch black. So instead I'm going to click background pattern color. And I'm just going to pick a pretty light gray up here. And then say okay. And then masking just means, do I want to be able to see through it or not? Like, do I want it to highlight or do I want it to cover? We do want it to be masking. Remember, we don't want it to be transparent. So I'm going to leave that checked. And I'll say okay. So now if I deselect, you see that it's gray. And that looks pretty close to what we've got on our PDF. So I'm going to save. Okay. Now we're going to move to our ceiling plan. So some of you did not create the ceiling plan for progress set 1. I did ask that you create that, but I do understand that I didn't talk about that in class or the video last week. But it is super simple to create. It's just like creating your floor plans and stuff. So as you draw your floor plan, Revit will automatically start filling in that ceiling plan because it knows, how far your walls go up. So it just takes that information and turns it into a ceiling plan. So you should have come over here to your level 1 ceiling plan and renamed it first floor ceiling plan. And then all you have to do is create your sheet, which you should be pros at now. You go to view, sheet, You'll name it first floor plan A200, put your name on it, and then you'll drag that ceiling plan over here. Okay, so it's up to you. Oh, here, hang on. I'm forgetting something. So we're going to copy this filled region to all of our other plans. So right now it's just on A100. We're going to also copy that over to A200, your ceiling plan, A800, your finished plan, and A900, your FF&E plan. So I'm going to select it on my keyboard. I'm going to type Control-C, just like when you copy text like in Word or on the internet or anywhere else. Control-C to copy. I'm going to come over to where I want to paste it. You have to be activated in the view. You can't be on the sheet. You have to be in the view. And instead of doing Control-V to paste like normal, I'm going to come up here to my modify ribbon. Under paste, I'm going to click that little drop down, and then I'm going to click align to current view. And it'll put it back in the exact same place, just on this view instead of the other. And then I'm going to do the same thing on first floor finished plan. I need to turn this PDF off. I'm going to hide it. And then I'm going to paste my zoom bars in the way. I'm going to paste my build region here. And then I'm going to do it one more time here. Activate the view. And align to current view. Okay. I'm trying to tell you all everything, do tasks in an order that makes sense, but it's so hard because there's so many little tools that are, interconnected. It's hard to do everything in an orderly way, but I'm trying. Okay, we were talking about the ceiling plan. So you placed your ceiling plan. Please put ceilings in all of these rooms. So, of course, you don't need a ceiling over here in the non-scope area, but you do need a ceiling in all your other rooms. So to place a ceiling, looks like I'm still missing one here, right? So to place a ceiling, you can go to architecture, ceiling, and you can choose your type here. And then if you use automatic ceiling, it should highlight a boundary. And it'll ask you like, you want to place one in this room, this room. Sometimes that works okay. Sometimes Revit has trouble with that and it's not sure where the boundary is. Like, for example, even though we've got a room separator here, Revit is real confused about what the ceiling needs to be like here. So if that's the case, or if it's giving you an error, some of you all, it was giving you a weird error, you can sketch ceiling instead. And I've asked that you all put these ceilings, I think it 8 feet. Let me double check. Sorry, I can't remember what I asked you to put in there. No. 9 feet. Okay. No. So you change that over here where it says height offset from level. I don't want it to be 8 feet. That's a pretty normal default instead. Oops. Instead, I'm going to click in here and type 9 feet. Okay, and now I'm going to sketch. I've got my sketch line selected. I'm just going to follow on the inside of the walls. I see that I've missed right here. I've missed my filled region doesn't line up right there. Okay. Click the green arrow to accept, or sorry, green check mark. Okay. You all have the option. You can do whatever kind of ceilings you prefer in these rooms. I am going to say, I'm I'm going to have my exam rooms, which are these 4 rooms, and my procedure room to be gyp ceiling. Gyp ceiling is just like drywall, so you'll find that down here, GWB on metal stud. That's just gypsum wall board on metal stud. So I'm going to select that, and now they're going to look kind of empty. That's just because it's the gyp instead of ceiling grid here. And then I'm going to, okay, first I'm going to change these to 2x2 tiles. I prefer the 2x2 square ceiling tiles over these long ones. I just think they look a little more modern. But before I do that, some of you all are asking me, this ceiling is going horizontal, this ceiling is going vertical. How do I change which way my ceiling grid is going? So you can just grab one of your grid lines. You see that they highlight when you mouse over them. You just click one and then use your rotate tool. And then you can just rotate 90 degrees. And now it's going the same direction. Okay, but I'm going to change my ceiling grids to 2x2. Some of you all also asked how to select your ceilings. You were having a hard time clicking them. You were clicking grid lines, but you couldn't just grab the ceiling. The best way to do that is to zoom in close. And then if you get close to the edge of the wall, like where you know the boundary of your ceiling is, it should highlight. But if it doesn't, like see now it's grabbing that wall, I can push tab until it selects the ceiling and then you click. You still have to click when you use tab. So, I'm just mousing over things and it's highlighting options. But then when I push tab, it'll circle through things I can select and then I can click it to select it. So I'm going to grab all of my 2x4s and I'm going to change that to 2x2. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit harder to explain via video since we can't be looking at the ceiling in our study room, but best practices for acoustic ceiling tile. So you will start to notice this when you're out and about different places, when you're looking at ceilings of buildings. Typically, ceiling tiles should align through doors. You want your grid to line up. It doesn't look good if your grid is not aligned across the door. So like, even though your doors aren't showing on the ceiling plane because your doors don't go all the way to the ceiling. We know we have doors over here, right, that go into these exam rooms. And we know there's a door here. So we want this grid to line up. And to do that, you can type AA. Oh, hang on. I think I set that up in class today. If you want to change your keyboard shortcut, go to View, User Interface, Keyboard Shortcut, and then start typing the tool that you want to change. I want to change the Align tool. I think it's default set to AL. I like to use AA because Align is a tool you use constantly, just all the time. I'm using the Align tool. And I like to have it set as AA because it's easy for me to hit without taking my hand off the mouse or looking at the keyboard. I can just grab that AA tool. So I've set it to AA. You'll have to remove the keyboard shortcut that's set to AL. So I can show you with this one. I'll remove AA. You select it. You click this remove button. If I want to assign it, you type AA and click assign. AA is default set to something analytical. I think it's this one, adjust analytical model. It'll tell you when you set up AA, it'll say, wait a second, that command is already set to another, that shortcut is already set up to another command. You can have a command set up for more than one shortcut. It will just circle through the options, but that's going to be annoying too if every time you're trying to align, if it's like trying to do that other tool first and then you have to push it again. That's not a tool you will ever use. That's like a structural command. So I just come up here, I click AA here and then remove it so that you only have AA set up for align. So I'm going to say okay. So now I can use my align tool. If you don't use your keyboard shortcuts, you can come up here to modify, and align is just 2 little blocks. So I'm gonna click AA, and then I've got that little same symbol next to my mouse, which means I'm ready to go. I'm gonna click one grid line, and then I'm gonna click the other. And then you can also click the little padlock to make them stay aligned so that they don't shift on you. And then I'm also gonna align at the, so hang on. So we also talked about this in class. So for example, up here, you see I have 2 full tiles wide, or sorry, 3 full tiles. And then I've got this little sliver over here and a little sliver over here. Another thing that's best practices is in real life, when you're installing a ceiling grid, you want those 2 pieces on the side that are not full pieces, you want them to be even, like you want to split them evenly. So right now this would be like bad practice. So you've got this little sliver over here and you've got a bigger piece over here. So I'm going to grab one of my grid lines and I'm going to bump it over because I want it to be even. So see, now I've got 2 even ones on either side. That's how in real life they would install ceiling grid unless you have a bad contractor. And if you want to be exact, which you don't have to be, but if you want to be exact, you could see how wide is this? So 7.2. And I know these are 2 by 2 squares. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 6 full feet here. And that leaves what? 1.2 left over. So if I split that 1.2 by these 2 tiles, that would be what, 7 inches each. So you can use your move tool. I'm going to move this here. And then I know this needs to be 7 inches away from the wall. So let's see, that's 2 feet minus 7 inches. It's going to be 1.5. I'm going to scoot it over 1.5 and see, now they're exactly even. I can measure to double check. I've got 7 inches here. And I've got 7 inches here. Okay. So we're going to keep aligning through our doorways. And remember, when you're aligning by the grid, it's just moving the pattern inside of your ceiling. Because if I take the ceiling and I rotate, you know, obviously it's moving the entire thing. No, we don't want to do that. We just want to move the pattern inside the ceiling boundary. Okay, so I've got my ACT ceilings aligned. Now, I put grid ceilings, or I'm sorry, I put gyp ceilings in these rooms, these 5 rooms here. But they kind of look empty, like you can't tell that there's a ceiling in there because it's just white. So instead, I'm going to apply a gyp pattern to these ceilings, which is typically something you would see on a ceiling plan, just to indicate as clearly as possible that this is a gyp ceiling. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to come to Edit Type. And then we're going to click this Edit, this big white wide gray button by Structure, Edit. This is just telling you about like the physical structure of that ceiling. So it's telling me it's gypsum wallboard on metal stud. It's 4¼ inches thick. And then saying that 4¼ inches are made up of this. So it's made up of 3 5/8 inch metal stud. And then it's got a layer of 5/8 gyp on it. I'm going to click here under the materials column. I'm going to click in this gypsum wallboard layer because that's the part we're seeing, right? Like the metal stud is underneath, that's in the structure of the ceiling, but we're looking at the gypsum wallboard face. So I'm going to click under materials. I'm going to click that 3-dot button, and that's going to bring up my materials box. Okay. Under appearance, the appearance tab up here, I'm going to click, oh no, I'm sorry, it's in graphics tab. Just like we changed the filled region earlier, we've got foreground pattern and color and background pattern and color. So I'm going to click into foreground pattern. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select this one that says gypsum plaster. That's like a universally understood pattern for gypsum board. I'm going to say okay. Apply, okay. Okay, okay. And now you'll see that I have that pattern on my ceilings so they don't look empty anymore. Okay. One more thing. So let's see that I put this down. I think it's weird that we don't room tag ceiling plans. Every other plan gets a room tag. Your enlarged plans, your elevations, your floor plan, your finished plan, your FFE plan, all those things get room tags, but the ceiling plan doesn't, which I always thought was a little bit weird. But instead of room tags, we are going to tag the ceilings, and we're going to have to load that. So to do that, you can type TG on your keyboard for tag, or you can come up here to architecture. No, I'm sorry, annotate, and then click tag by category. And you see when you hover over it, it pulls up that TG keyboard shortcut. And then we want to turn off leader. And then when you click, it's going to say you need to load a ceiling tag. So we're going to say, yes, I want to load. That will be in your Imperial Library, annotations folder, architectural folder. And then it's ceiling tag with height. And we're going to open. Okay, so I'm still going to leave my leader turned off. I don't want the line that points, to what we're tagging. I just want to tag it right on the face. So I'm going to click in all these rooms to tag those ceilings. And then that one I'm going to skip a little bit. If you want to move your tag, you can use tab to select it, and then you can use that little move icon to scoot it around. And there we go. That was easy. Your ceilings are tagged. So it tells me what type the ceiling is, and then it tells me how high the ceiling is installed, and all of your ceilings should be 9 feet. Okay, we're going to save while we're here. Okay, next we're going to model our columns in place. Obviously, this is not something you would normally do. There are, just like there are doors and walls, there are columns that come, automatically loaded into Revit. You would never model your column in place, so don't go get a job and tell them you're gonna model columns in place, because they'll look at you like you're crazy. However, we're going to do that just for the sake of a really simple practice of using the model in place tool. So I'm going to come back to A100 to my first floor plan. And I'm going to activate this view. I'm inside of it. I'm going to unhide my PDF one more time so I can see where those columns are. So obviously your columns are where the grid lines cross. You see these rectangles everywhere, or squares, I guess. I'm going to start with this one on the top left corner of the building, just because that's an easy one to see. So you're going to scroll in. You're going to come to architecture, under component, that drop down, model in place. It's going to ask you what family category you want this to be. So obviously these are columns. When you click that, it's just going to bring in some parameters that it understands would make sense for any column, but you don't need to worry about that. Just select columns and say, okay, we're going to name this column. Okay, so now we're in the model, but once you're in the model, kind of like parentheses in math, we're going to go inside one more set of parentheses. We're in the model, but inside the model, we're going to place an extrusion. So you have all these options here. Let me back out for a second. You have all these options here. Extrusion, blend, revolve, sweep, swept blend, and void forms. The only thing I ever use, even modeling more complicated complex things are extrusion and void forms. And really you can kind of get away with not having to use void forms either. You'll pretty much always click extrusion, and it works just like modeling extrusions in, Rhino or something else. Now we're ready to draw. We see our little drawing crosshairs and we've got this line selected. And I'm just going to draw the 2D shape that I'm going to extrude. So I'm going to click. Another best practices kind of thing is when you're drawing, even if you don't know the size of something yet, like when we drew off of the PDF, you should never have dimensions that look like this. Like you should never draw things that are just willy-nilly, like to the 256th of an inch, because obviously that's not realistic. And even though you don't know the measurement, you know that that's not what the dimension is really going to be in real life. Things are generally the smallest they ever get is 1/8 of an inch, because it's just not realistic for a contractor to construct anything more accurately than 1/8 of an inch. So we don't know exactly what size these columns are, but I'm going to make mine 1/6. To see, it's telling me right now it's 1/5. I'm going to change that to 1/6. And it's telling me right now it wants to measure to here. I don't even know. I guess that's the middle of this wall. I'm going to drag this because I want to measure to here. Okay, and that side is already 1/6, so we're good there. So now you're going to click the green check mark, and that's going to accept your extrusion profile. And now we have to tell it how far to extrude. We're going to say from 0 feet, which is the floor, to, I'm going to say 10 feet. We set our walls to 10 feet, I believe, and we set our ceilings to 9 feet. I just want our columns to go above the ceiling. So you want the extrusion end to be 10 feet. So now it's telling me the extrusion is going to be this shape that we drew, this square, and it's going to go from 0 feet on the floor all the way up to 10 feet above the ceiling. So now I still have to finish my model. I finished the extrusion, but we're still inside the model. You can have multiple extrusions inside one model, which you probably would if you were, say constructing a desk. You might have 4 leg extrusions and then an extrusion for the desktop, right? So now I'm going to click Finish Model. And now we're done. Now we've completed that model in place. And if you want to verify that your column looks like it should, you can, oops, I'm dragging my video. I'm going to hide that before I do that again. Oops. I'm going to select some of the stuff up here. Depends on which mouse you use again, what you're selecting. I'm going to select some stuff, just arbitrarily select some area here. And then I'm going to click this little selection box button. It's like a blue sphere inside a little rectangular box. I'm going to click that. I'm going to zoom in. And it's showing me everything I selected in 3D. So I see my column over here. He looks like he should. And I see that this wall is way too high. It's telling me this wall is 20 feet high. And I think I want those to be 10. See, all my other walls are 10 feet. So I'm going to select it. And I'm going to change it to 10 feet while we're here, because I don't want that. Oops, not 1 feet, 10 feet. And see, now he's the same height as the other one. So I'll do that with this one too. Look, I've got some crazy walls in here too. Those are my curtain walls. Make that 10 feet. Make that 10 feet. And make that one 10 feet. Oops. I don't know what I did, but you can always do Control Z to undo. Okay. And also, when you're using this selection box, it can be really convenient when you're trying to look at stuff like way down inside a floor in your building, because generally, if you go over here to like the 3D view that Revit gives you automatically in your browser, it'll usually show you like the whole building, and you don't want that, right? Like, sometimes you're trying to see inside this room, and it's so hard when you're on the outside of the building. So like when I was in school, I used to just select like big chunks of the building and hide them and unhide them. But then that's not good, because it's hard to unhide all of that, right? Sometimes, there's still things you want to stay hidden. It's just a mess. So instead, you can use a selection box. And then once you're here, you can select the box on the outside, and then these little blue arrows appear. You can click those and drag your box so that it cuts. And it's not hiding anything, it's just changing the extent of what you can see. So it's really helpful when you're trying to see inside one of these rooms or something so that you can cut and see what's happening. Or you can like really, if we're just trying to look at this room in the corner, you can like really isolate things so that it's really easy to see what you're trying to find. So like I could pull all this in here. So I've just got this room, and then that makes it simple when you're trying to see what's going on. Okay, but we verified the column looks like he's supposed to. So now what you're going to do is you're going to copy this column and you're going to place them everywhere else where we had columns on the PDF. So I'll show you a few, but I'm not going to copy them all right now. Let's see. I can either type CO for copy, or you can click this like one circle into two icon that's under modify. And you click where you want to copy from, and then you say where you want to copy to. That didn't really place correctly. So I'm going to move them up here. You don't have to create more than one column type. You can if you want, because it looks like, see, this column is bigger than the first one we drew. But it's up to you. I just want you all to have experience with the model in place tool. I'm not so worried that these columns are exactly the right size. So you will do that for all of these columns. You will copy and paste your column model onto those. And then once you're done, you will hide your PDF. So we should see all these little squares. You can also select those and put them on your existing face. Okay, gonna save. Now we are going to tag our walls and tag our doors. So walls we only tag on our first floor plan. That's because the first floor plan is like an architectural plan, and it's just showing the contractor what type of wall to build where. So he doesn't need that information on every page. He just needs to be able to reference that on the sheet. So to do that, we're going to type TG for tag, or you're going to go to annotate tag by category. And you'll see that those same little diamonds will appear the same how they look on your sheet, or your PDF, I mean, your handout. I don't want them to be right up against the wall like that, because I want to be able to see the little line that shows me which wall they're pointing at. You'll see that on your handout, there are some that are kind of in the corner. Like if you look at on the PDF, if you look at exam room 111, there's a wall tag up in the corner of that room that says 901A, but you can't really tell which wall it's pointing at. You can't tell if it's that north wall or the west wall. So to fix that, I'm going to turn on this leader option up here at the top. These are like your tag options. I'm going to turn on leader, and then attached end will make it straight like this. So I'll show you an example. I'll tag this wall here. Or if you say free end, it lets you choose a little more specifically how you want to place it. So if I tag this wall over here, you click once to start your tag, you click once for the middle of your tag, and then you click one more time to be done. You're just think of it as placing those blue dots where you can drag it from, right? For this, I think it will be easier if you use attached end. And then if you want to get it closer to the wall after you place it, you can select it and then use that little blue move symbol to get it closer or further away from the wall. I think not every single wall on your plan, on your PDF handout has been tagged, but just match all of the tags that are there and confirm that you've got the right wall tag where you need it. I'm sorry, the right wall type where it's supposed to be. Your tags will verify that. So you'll tag all your walls. And then you're also going to tag all of your doors. So to do that, we're going to do the same thing, type TG or go to annotate tag by category. Going to turn off leader. And we're going to start placing them in our doors. I'm going to push the space bar to rotate my tag because door tags should go like long ways like this into the room. So see, I'm going to tag all of these rooms. I'm sorry, all of these doors, I should say. And then you, just like we renamed the room name and room number, you're going to type in here. You're going to select and type in the text. You're going to make these tags match your handout. Make all your door tags match. Generally, door tag numbers are the same as the room tag unless there's more than one door in and out of a room. Then, for example, if this room had more than one door, it might be 111A and 111B. But because there's only one door, it's just 111. But make sure all your door tags match your rooms. And then I'm also going to scoot these over a little bit. So the default door tags that Revit has are gigantic. They're huge. Normally a door tag would like, I don't know, be like a quarter of the size of this. They're normally much smaller. And you also normally move them and kind of scoot them to live up here against the door. And we're going to do that because we need to make a little bit of room for some other tags that we're going to do here in a minute. So go ahead and scoot your door tags best you can up against the door here. Okay, you're going to do that for all your doors. You're going to scoot your door tag best you can. Go ahead and save. Okay, we are going to copy these door tags into our other plans, just like you can copy your room tags. So I'm going to select one. I'm going to right click and say select all instances. Visible in view, you can say or entire project because right now I know that that's the same, but you can say entire project. It's going to grab all 8 door tags. I can confirm that down here by the funnel. I see that it says 8 and I know I have 8 doors. I'm going to Control C, copy. And then I'm going to come over here to my finish plan. And I'm going to go to modify. Oops, a little zoom bar needs to come down and get in the way. Okay. Sorry, modify. Under paste, we're going to click align to current view. And there they all are. They've pasted. I also see that I'm missing my room tags on this plan. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select all instances visible in this view. I actually don't need that one because it's already there. And then I'm going to paste. Okay, and then one more time, I'm going to do that on my FF&E plan. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select all of my door tags. I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste them. Okay, save. Okay, we're going to place some furniture in our furniture plan. However, I only need you to place furniture in the exam room that you are using for your enlarged plan and your elevations. So I think most of you did the same room I did in my example. That was exam room 2, which is up here on this corner of the building. So only place furniture in that room. I want you to place things like an exam chair, an exam stool, side chairs for family, sink with casework like a cabinet, whatever you think an exam room needs. Do spend a little time thinking about this because I think that Lindsay has intentions for you to be able to use this for your project for studio. But I'm not going to be concerned with what your models look like. other than seeing them here in plan view. Like I'm not going to have you render this or anything. So it's not like, you know, they need to be the most beautiful chairs you've ever seen. They just need to be chairs, if that makes sense. Nobody's going to know what they actually look like other than seeing them here on your plan. So I've provided you a couple links. If you go to the assignment page, if you go to Canvas and then progress set 2, there are 2 links on that assignment page, one to Steelcase and one to Herman Miller, to their healthcare models. So that should give you a good start of where to find these things. So just for the sake of this example, and just like I did in class, instead I'm just going to place 2 chairs from the Revit library, because it will take you a little bit of time to do this part of the assignment, to figure out your furniture and place it. But just so that you're not watching me spend time on Steelcase's website, I'm going to come over here. Let's see, architecture component, or you can type CM for component. I'm going to load a family. I'm going to back up here to my US Imperial Library. I'm going to go to furniture, seating. Revit just comes with some very basic models. Most of these are pretty terrible and pretty ugly, or just weird. I'm going to select this stacking chair. It's a pretty sad looking little chair, but we're going to use it for this example for my side chairs. You can push your space button to, space bar to flip around your model. I'm going to place 2 here for this example. Okay, so now we are going to put these on the furniture work set. If you were in class, we went ahead and set up all your work sets in class. If you need help, we will do it again here. So to do that, you are going to come down here to the bottom of your screen to this little tiny button that's like a wrench and a green block and a blue block. It says work sets. I'm going to click it. It's going to ask you, you are about to enable work sharing, blah, blah, blah. Don't change anything, just say yes, that's fine. Okay, this is our work set dialog box, our work set menu. So we're going to click new over here on the side. We're going to name it FF&E. We're going to uncheck visible in all views because we only want that one to be visible on our FF&E plan. We're going to say okay. So now here it is. It's a new work set and it's not visible in all views. So you can think about work set 1. You see up here. Work set 1 is like all of the building components that show up in every view and that you would never want to hide. For example, doors, walls, floors, and ceilings. Obviously, there's not going to be any plan that I'm going to show where I'm going to have walls hidden or doors hidden. So all that stuff lives on work set 1. You can set up new work sets like we just set up FF&E, where you can place things that you only want to show up in certain views. You can think about that like, it's like using layers in Photoshop or Illustrator. You know how you can turn an entire layer on and off with a little eye icon. This is essentially the same thing. We're just creating a layer called FF&E, and then we can turn that entire layer on and off in different views. So we're going to say, okay, it's going to ask you about active work set. Do you want to make FF&E work set the active work set? I'm going to say no. It's best to just always leave work set 1 as your active work set. It will tell you what your active work set is down here next to that work set button. The only thing the active work set does is any new things that you place in your model, it will go ahead and assign to that work set automatically, whatever the active work set is. I think it's more of a pain than help because you tend to forget to change it back to work set 1. So then you're like placing things on the wrong work set and you have to go back and fix it. It's not a big deal. I think it's just easiest to leave it on work set 1 and then move things to work sets as you go. So I've got these 2 chairs and I want to put them on the FF&E work set. So I'm going to select them and then I'm going to come over here in properties, and now I see work set. They're on work set 1. I'm going to click the drop down and put them on FF&E. So now you'll see that they just disappeared. They disappeared because we haven't turned that work set on for this view yet. So to do that, because remember, we turned it off in all views. So to turn it on for just this drawing, I just want it to show up here and not on any of my other drawings. I'm going to go to my visibility graphics menu, which is VV, or it's I think it's under view visibility graphics if you want to find it in your ribbon. Go to the far right tab, work sets, and then it says FF&E, use global setting not visible, because we told it make it not visible in all views. Click the drop down, click show, apply, okay. And now my chairs are back. They're turned on in my FF&E plan. If I come over to my first floor plan, you will see that they don't show up. They're not here, but they are in my FF&E plan. We're going to do the same thing for finishes. So as you're placing your furniture in your exam room, whichever exam room you've chosen to use, make sure that you are continuing to assign that stuff to your FF&E plan, and you will know if you've missed anything, because as you go to work on other sheets, you'll see those items there and you shouldn't be seeing them. Furniture only lives on the FF&E plan. However, things that are installed like casework and sinks, if it's attached, then it's going to live on your floor plan, because anything that's attached is considered construction. But like a chair is not attached, so we can leave that on the FF&E plan. Okay, I'm going to save. Now, since we set up work sets, it's going to give you this message. It's going to say, this is the first time that the project has been saved since work sharing was enabled. This project will become the central model. Do you want to save this project as the central model? You can say yes. I don't really understand why work sets has to be tied to work sharing. Work sharing is like, you know, when I'm at work, multiple of us can work on the same Revit file at once. That's work sharing and syncing. I don't really understand why work sets needs to be tied to that, but it's fine. We'll just have this set up as a work sharing model now. However, some of you all have asked me about your studio project. You will not be able to use it that way. You won't be able to, multiple of you work at the same time on the same project, because in order to do that, you have to be on like the same server and the same network. So even though you may be on like the same UK Wi-Fi, you're not going to be like attached to the same server, so it's not going to work, unfortunately. I think it was Selah had a question about BIM 360, which I'm not familiar with. I've not used it before, but there may be some hope if you all research, which I haven't done yet, but if you research, you may be able to host your workshare model maybe on the internet, which I'm wondering if that's the case. And that would be great for you all to be able to work on one project hosted on the internet. But don't give up on that yet, and do some Googling and see what you can find. So now that this is the central model, when you go to save, you'll see that your little floppy disk icon is grayed out, and instead now you have this option next to it. Synchronize and modify settings. It's like a little, almost looks like a gift box with a green arrow next to it. You will click that to save. It'll bring up this box and you'll say okay. And that's how you're going to save from now on. Okay. Now we're going to work on our finish plan. So we're going to come over here to A800. And we don't have any floors in our model, right? So far we have walls and doors and ceilings, but we have not created any floors. So typically in a construction project, you would have a floor slab, which may be, you know, a super thick concrete slab. In something like residential construction, it's probably more just like a wood subfloor, maybe trusses. There may be concrete, it's not going to be as thick. So when we think about floor finishes and the interior scope of a project, you know, those are not structural. So when we apply, obviously when we apply carpet or wood floor or vinyl floor, rubber floor, whatever, those things are just on top of that structural subfloor. So we are going to create a floor that's gonna, it's not gonna be a finished floor. This is gonna be like our structural floor. So we're gonna go to architecture floor. We're going to choose this type. I think it will be your default floor, generic 12-inch. It's just going to be like a 12-inch concrete slab. And we are going to put this under the entire floor, or I'm sorry, entire footprint of the building. Because obviously something like this would, you know, it's not confined by rooms. It dictates the boundary of your floor, the building. Whereas something like a finished floor, like carpet, might, you know, be dictated by rooms. Okay. There we go. I can see that boundary in pink. I'm going to click the green check mark to accept. And now I've got this concrete floor. I'm just going to leave that on work set 1. That's fine. Now we should be on 800 on our first floor finished plan. We're going to start adding finished floors, and we want those to only live here on the finished plan. So we're going to use work sets exactly the same. I need you for this project to use a minimum of 2 different floor types. I don't care what those are. I don't care where you put them. That's up to you, but I need you to choose at least 2. So for the example we did in class, you don't have to do exactly what I do. I'm going to go to architecture floor again, just like we did for the concrete floor. I am going to say that my lobby and my circulation is going to be LVT. So I'm going to start drawing that boundary. And you draw along the inside face of your walls. See, I didn't get that one quite right, so I'm going to exit out of my drawing tool and I'm going to use my align tool to fix that. That's what I'm talking about when I say that you constantly use the align tool. There's always something. There's another one I didn't get right. Here is another little tip. So if you're like way zoomed in and you're having a hard time getting a line right because, you know, they get wider as you zoom in and you have something that's really close, but it's not quite on and you're trying to figure it out, you can type TL for thin line, or you can select it up here at the very, very top of your screen. There's like a wide line and a skinny line with a dash. It will make everything these really thin, skinny lines everywhere, or you can do it again to make everything go back to normal. Sometimes that's helpful when you're trying to just see what's going on and you need a skinnier one. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, so here's another best practices thing. So you will see that when I've passed doors, where there will be a transition from one material to the other, I'm going to have LVT outside of this procedure room. Inside, I'm going to have a different type of floor. So typically when you have a floor transition, you should take a look next time you're walking around your apartment or when you're walking around a building on campus. Take a look when you cross through a door where materials change. Best practices is for your material to change in the center of the door so that when the door is closed, you can't see where those materials meet. You want it to be centered under that door. So anywhere where we have this condition, where we have a material meeting another at a door, we're going to use our line tool and we're going to put that line in the center. just like that. Let's see. That's our last door. Okay, so now that I'm done drawing, I'm going to click the green check mark to accept that boundary, and it's going to turn orange, and it's going to tell me highlight floors overlap. That's because we have the concrete subfloor down, so it's telling me that they're existing in the same place, which obviously is not possible in real life. So instead, I'm going to come over here while it's selected. I'm going to come to my properties where it says height offset from level. I'm going to say 1/8 inch because that's probably pretty close to the thickness of LVT. And now they're not overlapping anymore. Things look good. Okay. We're going to select. I haven't changed this type yet, so it's still telling me I'm drawing a generic 12-inch floor. So instead, I'm going to go to edit type. And just like we set up our folders and stuff last week, we're going to click duplicate to make a new type. I'm going to name this whatever your floor is, LVT1. And then I'm going to go to edit type. I don't want my thickness to be 12 inches because obviously LVT is not 12 inches thick. I'm going to say 1/8 inch for my thickness. Say okay. And then, oh, sorry, I'm also going to edit my material. So just like we did for the gyp ceiling earlier, we're going to click in the material box. We're going to click on that 3-dot button. And then I'm going to create a new material under identity. I'm going to name it LVT1. And then under graphics, I'm going to assign it a pattern for my finished plan. So I'm just going to scroll down here and pick this earth pattern. And I'm going to apply, okay, okay, okay. And now I have that pattern there. However, you will see when you come to like A100 or one of your floor plans, we're going to see it there, and we don't want to see it there. So I'm going to make a new work set. I'm going to come down here to the button with the wrench. I'm going to click new. I'm going to name this finishes. I don't want it to be visible in all views, so I'm going to uncheck that box, click OK. Click OK. No, I don't want to make finishes the active work set. So I'm going to select that floor I just created. I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to set it to my finishes work set. It's going to disappear because we have to turn finishes on this floor. I'm sorry, on this view. So I'm going to type VV for visibility graphics. Come over to work sets, and under this box, I'm going to click show. Apply, okay. So now there it is. I see it on my finished plan, and I don't see it on my first floor plan. So that means I did it correctly. We're going to do the same thing for another finished floor. So I'm going to come up here to floor. I'm going to draw where I want it to go. I'm going to put this floor. I'm going to say that my exam rooms in my procedure room have a rubber floor. So I'm going to start tracing that boundary. Some of you asked in class if it was okay if the floor boundary went through a wall. That's fine. So for example, I just traced these two rooms separately, but I could instead do this. I could have it look like that where it's all one. That's fine. It's fine if it goes underneath a dividing wall. So I'm going to do that over here because that's easier for me to not have to trace those center walls too. So we're going to align these to the center of the door so it'll meet that other material. See, we don't want this gap. We want to align it where they meet. You can accept that. It's going to tell me they overlap. So we're going to come down here and do the same thing. We're going to say offset from level 1/8 inch. That fixes it. We're going to click edit type, duplicate, and we're going to rename this. I'm going to name it RF1 for rubber floor 1. We're going to go to structure, edit, material, click in there, click the 3-dot button. We're going to create a new material. When you do this, don't click duplicate selected material. When you duplicate, it attaches the same asset. So they are tied to the same material asset, which means that as you change parameters of one, it changes the other without you knowing, which can be really annoying. I recommend never duplicating unless you need to. And then when you duplicate, you have to also duplicate the asset. We will get into that further in the future, but if you have questions about that, let me know. But when you are able, you should always click create new material when you have the chance. So I'm going to call this RF1, and then in graphics, I'm going to click foreground pattern. I'm going to pick something else to assign it. I'm going to give it these wood wavy lines. Why not? Say OK. Oh, I see something we missed. Thickness needs to be 1/8 of an inch because we don't want that to be a foot thick. That will look crazy in 3D. And then say OK. Say OK. And there we go. Select this floor and put it on your finishes work set, or else it will show up in your other views. So there we go. You've got your floor finishes assigned. I still haven't assigned anything to this room. You should have at least 2 materials, and you should apply them to all of your rooms that are in the scope. I'm going to save while I'm here. Okay. Now we are going to add transition symbols. So to do that, we will go to annotation symbols. So you can go to annotate and symbol. It's this like black and white checker thing. Or you can type AS. Well, no, I'm sorry. You have to set this up. So if you want to set up your keyboard shortcut for placing a symbol, you go to View, User Interface, Keyboard Shortcuts. You can type in symbol, and it is this one that says symbol. And then I don't think it has a shortcut already applied. I like to use AS. You can use whatever you want. Say OK. Okay, so we're going to type AS, or we're going to go to annotate symbol. And you will look here in your drop down, and at the bottom you should have one. If you're using the template, you should have one that says transition at the bottom. I'm going to click that, and then you'll have this funny little like circle and double arrow thing. You are going to place this at any doors or any other threshold where one floor material transitions to another. So for example, I have that at my doors here. I'm going to push space to flip it around. You want it to point from one material to the other. I'm going to click to place it in the center of my door. And you see that I have these 2 question marks here. These are text boxes I can type in. So I'm going to type to say what material is which side of the arrow. So this direction I have RF1. This direction I have LVT1. And there we go, I've got my transition symbol. This is why we moved our door tags over. Like I said, door tags are typically more like the size of this circle. They're usually much smaller. That's okay that they're giant in default Revit. Not a big deal. We just want to be able to read our transition symbols. So continue to place those. You can keep placing them manually, like we just placed the first one, or you can copy and put this, since you've already typed in it, you can save yourself a little bit of time typing. I'll place it here, and then I'm going to push space to flip it around. Now be careful if you do that, because it may be the other direction. Sometimes if you're copying and pasting, it really may be the same 2 materials, but you may have them on the wrong side of the arrow. Let me see if I have one like that I can use. Actually, I don't, but just be wary if you're copy and pasting that the information on your transition is still true. So you're going to place those at all of your doorways. And then we're also going to, or I'm sorry, all of your doors or transitions where you have floor transition. We also use those, I don't think I said this in class, we also use those to say, you know, if this is a renovation project and we're only renovating this small little portion of the building, we're not renovating the whole building. Where that boundary is, you would say, you know, this material is going from LVT1, then over here, you would say existing, because it's going to transition to whatever the existing material is on the floor. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna save. We're also going to use one more tag on our finished plans. So now you're going to come up here. Again, if you're using the template, you're going to come up here to annotate and you're going to click component. This is not the same as clicking component under architecture. You have to make sure you're under annotate and click component here. These are annotation components. You'll click the drop down and you should see finish limits. So we're going to click that. And you're going to get this symbol that says type in finish notes here, and you'll see those little bits of line coming out from behind the text. So you will need to pick at least one accent paint. You don't have to pick the color. This is just like the furniture. We're never going to see what that color is, so I don't need you to like spend time putting together a finished palette. You would just have a quote unquote accent paint. So PT1, paint 1 might be your field paint. Which would be like, you know, maybe it's white, maybe you have white everywhere, but then you have an accent paint color, right? So generally, you don't have to note that you have PT1 everywhere because it's your field paint. The assumption is you would have a general note on your finished plan that would say PT1 all walls unless noted otherwise. So essentially what we're doing here is noting otherwise. We're saying the walls that are not PT1, which is your field paint. So I'm going to place it. I'm going to select it and I'm going to come over here. This one you cannot type in. You have to come over here to the properties to type the note. So I'm going to say PT2 because I'm noting my accent paint that I'm calling PT2. And for example, I'm going to say that it's on the back wall of this procedure room across from the door. So now that it says the right thing, I'm going to select it. I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to click on the tip of this line and I'm going to move that into the corner. And that's the extent of that paint. That paint is going from that corner of the room. And I want it to go all the way over here to this other corner. I want it to cover this chase right here around the column. So I can move that there, but then what am I supposed to do for this, right? So you can copy this if you want. I'm going to copy from there to there. And then I'm going to drag with my little arrows. I'm going to shorten it. And then we are going to kind of cheat a little bit. So I'm going to turn off one end. You can click these. Oops, sorry, hang on. You can click these check marks to turn on and off the little ends of your symbols. So I'm going to turn off the ones where they meet. But then I need to connect them here. So I'm going to draw a line called a detail line, which is not a model component. It's just an annotation. It's just like drawing with the pen tool in Illustrator. So I'm going to click up here an annotation detail line, or you can type DL for detail line. I like to think of my head draw line. I tend to think draw line when I'm working, but it's for detail line. I'll draw one here, but see, that's way too skinny. Like that doesn't look right. It doesn't look like it matches. I'm going to select it, and up here in line style, I'm going to say wide line, and that'll make it match. So now this makes sense. It says that PT2 is going from this corner all the way over to this corner. And when you see that, these slanted parts, the little tips, that's saying that's where it ends. So you should really only have two of those, two slants, a start and an end for every place you have an accent. So let me show you another example for that. So I'm going to come up here to annotate component. I'm going to place. I'm going to select it and type in here PT2. I am going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to move it into this corner. Okay, so say I wanted to have PT2 along this wall and along this wall in this exam room. So I'm going to drag it down here. I copied it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so that it can go on that bottom wall. I'm going to move it to place it up here. Okay, see, I don't want these center little points because that doesn't make sense to say from this point to this point and this point to this point. It needs to just read as one start and one end. So it's going to start here, go all the way here and end here. It doesn't make sense to start and stop at the same place in the middle. So I'm going to click to turn off those arrows. Sometimes you have to guess a little bit to guess which one is the right tip. There we go. So it should look like that. If you go around a corner, we want to see it like this. We don't want to see arrows here in the middle. Okay. You're going to do that for anywhere where you have an accent paint color. You're going to put these little symbols on your walls, and those are finished limits. We use those for other things other than paint. Sometimes you might use that if you had like a wall graphic, say like a vinyl wall wrap or a wall covering, or even things beyond that. You might have chair rail, that protects the wall from chairs scrubbing it. You might use solid surface. Maybe you have like a solid surface wainscot. You can use these same little annotations to show where those limits are on plan view. Okay, let's see. The next thing we're going to do is create an FF&E schedule. So we're going to come back over here to A900 to our FF&E plan. I'm going to go to View, Schedule, and then click Schedule Quantities. And creating a schedule is basically like creating an Excel chart. A schedule is just a list that organizes or quantifies different components in the building. I think the word schedule is dumb because that seems really misleading. I remember that being confusing when I was in school. We think of schedule as like, relating to time, but it's really just a list of components essentially. So we are going to scroll down here in our categories until we find rooms. You're going to select that, and then over here in the name, you're going to type FF&E schedule. You're going to select schedule key. And we're going to name the key. Let me think. This is going to be FF&E schedule. And we're going to click OK. And now it's saying, okay, I know you wanted to set up a schedule called FF&E schedule, but tell me what columns of data we're going to have. So these are available things we can use from rooms, but we don't want to use any of these. Instead, we're essentially going to create a dummy schedule. So Revit can smart schedule things to where it can automatically count all of the doors. It can organize the doors by type, by size, by room. It can do all these great things on its own. It just knows how to count all these model components, but we're not really going to be counting model components for the FF&E schedule. Instead, we're going to create a dummy schedule. So typically, at least for our interior scope, most interior firms don't do a lot with furniture. We may create, a reference plan for furniture. Like, this is where I want furniture to go. I want a task chair here, and we may kind of provide some intent, but at the end of the day, it's a furniture vendor who's also working with the client, also has a contract with the client, who will pick the final furniture that goes there. Because as I'm sure you all know, if you've ever been on like Steelcase's website, Herman Miller's website, there are 1,000 parts and pieces that can go into any part, or I'm sorry, any piece of furniture. So for instance, if you've ever downloaded like a desk model from Steelcase, you know that it comes with like all these connector pieces and like panels, different little legs and feet, and like all these things, and that's just like overwhelming. We don't really deal with that as interior designers. That is something that the furniture vendor will do. So instead, when you place all those model components, say I placed a Steelcase desk that has 200 pieces and parts, little individual model components. I don't want to like tag all of those, right? That's not my intent, because I'm not the one picking out those parts and pieces. I just want to call it a desk as a whole. So instead of smart scheduling all of those pieces, we just want to create a dummy schedule where we can manually put in like one desk. So to do that, we're not going to use these smart fields. We're going to create a new field here. Sorry, this little paper button with the orange sunburst. We're going to name it description. And then leave the discipline common. Under type of parameter, we're going to click text. And then under group parameter, we want text. Don't change anything else, and click OK. And then we're going to create one more. And we're going to call this provided by. And same thing, discipline under common, type, text, group parameter under text, click OK. So these are the 3 columns of information we're going to have in our schedule. Click OK. And now it's opened your FF&E schedule. I'm going to space these out a little bit so we can see what's going on. I'm going to click in here under key name. I'm going to rename that to type mark. Okay. So under type mark, we will put things like those 2 chairs that I placed in my exam room. I might call those CH1 for chair 1. Under description, you don't need to be too crazy about it. You just need to provide a very general description. So I might say side chair. You don't have to go so in depth. You don't need to say like guest chair with sled-based legs and arms on casters. Like, you don't need to do all that. You just need to be like very general. Just say it's a side chair or exam stool or workstation, or any very basic kind of description. Provided by can be a little bit confusing. It'll probably be confusing because you're not used to working this way. It will make a lot more sense once you start working with clients one day, but provided by is a set of 4 letters. So for example, you might have owner provided, contractor installed. It's always going to be either owner or contractor, and it's always provided installed. So it could be owner provided, contractor installed. It could be contractor provided, contractor installed, or it could be owner provided, owner installed. You have those 3 options. Typically when you have loose furniture, so like a chair that doesn't require any sort of like serious, like it doesn't require you to put it together, assembly, it doesn't require like to be wired into electricity, just something like a chair, a sofa, a coffee table, things like that would always be owner furnished, owner installed. The owner is furnishing them because they have a separate contract with the vendor. So that just means, with the furniture vendor. So that just means that the contractor has no responsibility to purchase or install that item. That means that the owner is in charge of providing the item, which means purchasing. And then the owner is responsible for installing. Obviously, to install a chair, you sit it on the floor. It doesn't require any actual quote unquote installation. Things that are contractor provided, contractor installed are kind of the other end of the spectrum. So the contractor purchases things like paper towel dispensers or grab bars in the bathroom. Those things are contractor provided. And then obviously the contractor has to install them because they're either fixed to the wall or a surface, or they require to be wired into, maybe data systems or the internet or electric power. So to start putting rows under your columns, we're going to come up here to insert data row. And that's how you will add all your rows of information. You'll add type marks that match your furniture. So I'm going to have chair 1. And then under description, I'm going to say side chair. And then that's going to be owner furnished, owner installed. And your other options would be, again, owner furnished, contract installed. And then contractor furnished, contractor installed. Those are your 3 options. And you'll just keep filling in your furniture as you place it on your FF&E plan. To place this schedule on your FF&E sheet, you come over here to your browser, you'll expand schedules, and then you, just like you drag a plan or view onto a sheet, you'll just drag your schedule. And you can expand it here. You can expand with these little triangles if you need to. To get back to your schedule, you just double click it and it will reopen for you to type into it. Go ahead and save. Okay, the last thing we're going to work on is the interior elevation. So we're going to go to A180. Some of you all need to pull in your crop boxes. So we don't want to see the edge of these walls over here, and we don't want to see the ceiling. Think of your interior elevation as when you're in a room, when you're looking at the face of a wall, you can see corner to corner, you can see to the face of the floor, and you can see to the face of the ceiling. You can't see, above this line here on the bottom, right? Like you can't see through the edge of the ceiling. You can't see through the edge of the floor, and you can't see through the edge of the sidewall. So we don't want to see that on our elevation. There shouldn't be a section of anything. So we're going to pull that in and then pull this in here. If when you select your box on the outside, if you can't get this box to come up with the 4 little blue dots to drag, that means you need to come down here and turn on your crop region visible. That's why you are not able to select that. Remember, that's turning on the frame that you can drag. So some of you all need to do that. So I left mine that way so that we could do that here. I don't want to see that sidewall, don't want to see my ceiling. So for progress set 2, you need to start filling in these elevations. So you shouldn't be seeing furniture. We only want to see things that are attached to the wall. So if it's like a chair in front of the wall, we don't want to see that on our elevation because it's not attached. So we want to see things like wall base. If you had chair rail or like crash bar in a hospital, we would want to see that. You would want to see casework that's installed, cabinetry that's attached to the wall, counters that are attached to the wall. You would want to see things like mirrors or grab bars or hand sanitizers, soap or paper towel dispensers, anything that's installed on that wall, we want to see. If it's not attached, we don't want to see it. Before we do that, we want to get rid of these patterns. So because we applied this pattern to the gyp ceiling earlier. Now it's showing up on my gyp wall. I don't want to see that. I also don't want to see this brick pattern that is a result of those exterior walls. So instead, what we're going to do, activate the view, select not your crop box, but your wall. And if you're having a hard time selecting your wall, you can come to A100, select it here instead, and then go back and it will be selected. You're going to right click, override graphics in view by element. So that's going to override how this element shows up, but only in this one view. And then we're going to uncheck foreground pattern visible. Apply. Okay. So see, now I'm not seeing that pattern. I should be seeing a square here. Even when this is closed, or I'm sorry, when this is turned off, I want to see a rectangle. I need to pull that out just slightly, just enough to see the face of that side wall, but to not see through it. There, that looks better. We can do the same for this brick wall. Select the wall, right click, override graphics in view by element, uncheck foreground visible, say okay. Now it's gone. To apply wall base, you will need to download, well, I don't have it open anymore. You need to download the wall base profile that I have provided in Canvas under files, under assignment 2. You will see an RFA file that says like vinyl wall base profile or something like that. So you'll need to download that. You will then need to open. So we're going to open that profile. You go to File, Open, navigate to wherever you saved it. Open. And it should look like this. That's just like the side view of our wall base. You don't need to do anything to it here. You just need to say load into project and close. So we're loading that type. So now it's loaded. And then once we want to start placing it, here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go back to A100. Let's see. I'm going to select some of my rooms so that I can use my selection box tool and see them in 3D. I think it's easiest to place wall base in 3D view. It can be a little tricky if you're just looking at the elevation. So I'm going to open my 3D view. I am going to pull it down because I want to be able to see below the ceiling inside of those rooms. And then we're going to create the wall base. So we go to architecture. Instead of clicking wall, we click the drop down menu and we click sweep, edit type, because we're going to create a new type. So we're going to duplicate. We're going to name this wall base. And then here under profile, we've loaded that type. So now if you scroll down, you should see wall base, vinyl wall base profile 4-inch and 6-inch. You can choose either one. 6-inch is probably more typical in a commercial or healthcare setting. 4-inch is more like residential. I'm going to click 6-inch, say okay. And now we are ready to place our wall base. You'll see when you hover over the walls that it will kind of preview. You can click near the base of your wall. And it should give you that little blue dotted line that means it's, it's aligning itself, it's snapping to the edge of the floor. If you don't get that, that's okay. Say you place it up here on the wall. You can either select it and come over here to properties. Under offset from level, you can say 0 inches and it will move it down to the floor. Or you can use your align tool and you can click the face of the floor and then click the bottom of your wall base and it will go to the floor. You can, I'm going to change my view type so that I can see a little better what's going on. So now I see that wall base along the edge here. When you're placing wall base, you can place it on more than one wall at a time. So I will show you that here. I could place it here. I could place it here. I could place it here. But sometimes it will give you weird little errors. It will say it can't place it there. For whatever reason, it will not let you place it on both sides of the same wall. So watch, if I'm this wall right here, if I try to place it on the other side, this side, it won't let me. I don't know why Revit does that. It does, it's fine. If it won't let you or you're having problems, you can just stop placing. So you can hit your escape key to stop placing, and then you can just start a new wall-based placement. So I'll start a new one. And now I can come over here and place it on the other side of this wall. I had to check which wall it was. Now I can place it. See it. I'm having a hard time getting it to the bottom of the wall. It doesn't want to preview down there, so I'll just click here. And then I'll change it to 0 so that it goes to the bottom. And now I have wall base on both sides of this wall. You can see it there. So go ahead and place wall base. It doesn't have to be on every single wall. I just want to see it on all of your elevations here. Once you have it placed, you should start to see wall base here in your elevations. Okay, the last thing that you need to do for progress set 2 is to start filling in these elevations. So I want to start seeing your wall base, your casework, your soap dispensers, all of those fun things. And then I want to see some very basic dimensions. So you'll dimension, how far your cabinet is off the sink. I'm sorry, hang on. How far your countertop is off the floor. So if you have like a counter with a sink in it, in your casework, for example. Let me just draw something real quick. Say you have, a cabinet here. It's got a sink in it. You don't need to dimension like every little tiny piece and part of this. I just want a dimension that says it's 3 feet tall and 5 feet 10 wide. Just very basic dimensions like that. If you have something on the wall, so say I have a soap dispenser here, then I want you to say, sorry, hang on, that the soap dispenser is so far off the floor. Maybe it's 4 feet off the floor. So you should have that for all 4 elevations. You should have your dimensions. You should have your things installed. And then you're also going to tag these rooms. So you can click RT on your keyboard to tag these rooms. You'll have to be activated in that view. So see, for example, I can't come over here and tag this one because I'm in this view. You have to deactivate the view, activate this view, and then I can tag. So make sure you tag your rooms and your elevations. Make sure that you place your wall base. Make sure that you have your installed components showing. And make sure you have your wall base showing. And then one last thing, we will also add some text notes. So you can come up here to annotate text. You just drag a block to type. You would say RB1 for rubber base one. You can drag that over here. Create an arrow. See, I clicked this little plus here. That just creates an arrow that comes off the side. And then you will drag it to point. I want to see that you can use the text notes. So go ahead and call out your rubber base just like this in all of your elevations, all 4. Okay, that'll be it for this assignment. We've covered it all. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to troubleshoot. Just be as specific as you can when you have a problem. If you're getting an error message, send me what the error message says. Feel free to send me like a screenshot if you're having a problem. Or if you're having something a little more complicated, I'm happy to Zoom with you. I can Zoom with you in the evenings, and we can look at your screen and figure out what's going on. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and please don't put this assignment off because this progress set is going to be a little bit more complicated and a little more time consuming than the first progress set. So make sure that you're not putting things off and that we're getting things done. Okay, let me know if you have questions.